In this session, we want to discuss virtual disk formats. Windows Server 2012 R2 Hyper-V supports the original VHD virtual disk as well as the new VHDX virtual disk introduced with Server 2012. Let's take a look at the differences between the original disk, VHD, and the disk introduced with Server 2012, VHDX. The storage capacity. With the original virtual disk, you had up to a 2 terabyte limit for storage space. With the new VHDX virtual disk, you have up to 64 terabytes of space that you can use on that disk. Then there is performance. With VHDX, we have improved disk performance. We also have to look at protection. With the VHDX format, we have protection against file corruption related to power failures. We did not have that protection with the original VHD legacy file format. What about compatibility? Well, if you're using VHDX, know that your files are not backward compatible, and your VHDX files can only be read by Server 2012 or Server 2012 R2 Windows 8, 8.1 Hyper-V servers. So you need to look out for that one. If you're going to use VHDX and you're going to be using previous operating systems, then you might have a problem if you need to read data from those systems. VHD has 3 types of virtual file: fixed hard disk image, dynamic hard disk image, and differencing hard disk image. Let us take a look at each one. The fixed hard disk image. This is an image file of a specified size in which all the disk space required to create the image is allocated during its creation. Fixed disk images can be wasteful in terms of storage because they can contain large amounts of empty space, but they're also efficient from a performance standpoint because there is no overhead due to dynamic expansion. So it gives you better performance because there's no dynamic expansion. With the second type of VHD, we do have dynamic expansion, but this disk is a bit different. It works differently. An image file with a specified maximum size. So when you are creating the dynamic hard disk, you give the maximum size for the disk. But the storage space starts small and expands as needed to accommodate the data that is written to it. So as you save stuff, as you write stuff on this disk will expand to accommodate the data that is being written to it. And of course, this will conserve this space, but you can have some negative performance here because each time the expansion occurs, there is overhead. The disk will work harder. And then we have the differencing hard disk image. With this type of image, you actually have another image that we call a child image associated with the main image, which we call the parent image. If, for example, you wanted to make some changes to the parent image, you wanted to add new drivers, but you were not sure if this might cause a problem with your image, what will happen is that the system will write the changes that you're making on the parent image to the child image, so that if you need to roll back your changes, you still have the parent image to roll back to without the changes that you had made. So the difference in hard disk facilitates a rollback at a later time. One of the really great things about the new disk, VHDX, is the size again. A lot more size than the VHD. Remember we said that the VHD simply lets you go up to 2 terabytes. But the VHDX, your files can be as large as 64 terabytes. With the VHDS, you also have support for a 4 kilobyte logical sector sizes, which provide compatibility with new 4 kilobyte native drives. With the VHDX files, you can also use larger block sizes, which enable administrators to fine-tune the performance level of a virtual storage subsystem to accommodate specific applications and data type files. But don't forget the compatibility. If you know that you want to migrate your VMs from perhaps Server 2012 to older versions of Hyper-V, then you should continue using the VHD file format. We want to take a look at actually creating your virtual disk. You can create the virtual disk when you are installing a virtual machine, or you can go in the console, in the Hyper-V Manager console, and you can create a disk in that console. We're going to take a look at using the new virtual machine wizard to create a virtual disk. To create the virtual disk, we want to click on Tools, Hyper-V Manager. In the left pane, we want to right-click on the Hyper-V host, which is server 1. So we're going to right-click, click on New, Hard Disk. At the Before You Begin screen, you want to click on Next. And you have a choice here. You have a choice of choosing a VHD disk, which supports up to 2 gigabytes of this space. And you also have the choice of creating a VHDX disk, which creates an image up to 64 terabytes using the new virtual DX format. We're going to choose the one that's there by default, VHDX. So we want to click on Next to continue. And here we have some options. You can choose from the fixed size, which will create a disk of a specific size, allocating all of the space at once. Or you can choose a second one, which is the dynamically expanding disk. And that creates a disk that can go up to the maximum size you specify as you add data. Then the third option is the differencing disk, and that creates a child drive that will contain changes made to a specified parent drive. We're going to choose the default, which is the dynamically expanding. So we're going to click next. And here we want to give the name and the location of the disk. By default, the location goes into public documents, Hyper-V, and we can leave it there, or we can browse and change the location. For our lab, we're going to leave the default location, and we want to give a name for the disk. So we're going to give it class CLASS virtual VIRTUAL disk DISK. So the name is class virtual disk, and we're going to leave the default location, and then we want to click on next to continue. At this point, we have three options here. The default is to create a new blank virtual hard disk. And here you get to specify the size or the maximum size of the disk image file that you want to create. The second option is copy the contents of the specified physical disk. And that option enables you to select one of the physical hard disks in the computer and copy its content to the new disk image. The third option here, the last one at the bottom, copy the contents of the specified virtual hard disk. That one enables you to select an existing virtual disk file and copy its contents to the new image. We're going to choose the default, which is create a new blank virtual hard disk. So we're going to click next to continue. The completing the new virtual hard disk wizard page appears, and all we need now to do is to click on finish. So the wizard will create the new disk image and save it to that specified location, the default location that we saw when we were creating the image. We'll want to click on finish. And that is how we actually go ahead and create that virtual disk. Remember that we get to choose between different types of disk. You can choose between the VHD and the VHDX. And then for the disk types, you have the fixed size, the dynamically expanding, and the differencing. And we went through those different types of disks, saying what they are and what they can do. So I want you to pay careful attention to the different types of disk options that you have and the different types of disk that you can choose. This is the end of our session on VHD and VHDX disk, virtual disk, and Hyper-V. I want to thank you for listening.